Hey guys, Jack Bennett here. Welcome to today's lesson. New format for I Can Play Drums on the YouTube channel. We've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday free lessons. Tuesday we're going to have a chat, vlog, whatever they call it. And on Thursday I'm going to be doing a cover. That's every week. So Tuesday, I thought we'd talk first of all about a drummer's gig box or bits box or whatever it is that you want to call it. So basically the case that you take to gigs, or if you're touring, that you fly around with you or travel around with you, that's got all the odds and ends that can help you out if you get in a bit of a sticky spot on a gig. So as we can see with a drum kit, there's a lot of different components to it. So there's potentially a lot of different things that can go wrong. Lots of fiddly little bits, wing nuts, cymbal sleeves, felts, hi-hat clutches, all sorts of stuff. And I just thought, I do a fair few gigs, and this is the sort of stuff that I've kind of accumulated over the last 20 years of playing. And if this can help you out with putting something together, by all means, please take some of this stuff and make it work for you. So let's just get straight into it. So this is just a hard case that you can get from any hardware store. Here in Australia, we have Bunnings and Mitre 10 and stores like that, but anywhere in the world, you'd have a similar sort of place. And this is just a really strong but plastic hard case. For about 15 years there, I used the same aluminium briefcase, and I refused to let it go. It had been with me since the beginning, and it kept getting worse and worse and more knocked around, and I kept putting more and more gaffer tape on it, and then eventually I gave it the flick and I bought this one. So I think this is actually a camera case because it came with a whole lot of layers of foam. Pre-built, which was really cool. I've actually removed some of them so I've got more space, but you can see here in the lid it's still got, kind of looks like the acoustic foam you might put, like that egg-shaped foam that you might put on the wall of a studio or something like that. But nonetheless, what it does is it keeps your gear nice and safe and protected. On top of this, I'll still put a towel just to make sure that things aren't flying around when I'm driving to gigs and so forth. So let's get straight into it. First off, we've got gaffer tape. Okay, so probably this is the most important thing in the entire case. There's a few different types of gaffer tape out there. You've got cloth tape, which is not particularly strong or sticky. Probably the industry standard that we have, at least here in Australia, is called Nashua tape. Like if you go to any music store, if you go to like something like Factory Sound or any of those kind of audio places, Nashua, they have big, thick rolls of it. It's very strong, very sticky. Another couple that you can use is Gorilla tape, which I've got here, and also Tarzan grip is really strong as well. Your kind of cheap gaffer tape or cloth tape, it's really not that sticky and really not that strong, so it may or may not work for you. So if you are going to get gaffer, and I highly recommend that you do, make sure that it's strong and sticky. All right, that's the first thing. So I've actually got a couple of different types of tape. I've just got this little white electrical tape. This is good for labeling things. It's not very strong. You can just tear it off easy. Like when I show you my little mini mixer there, if we're running tracks, if I need to, write things on with a Sharpie or whatever, this is really good. You see a lot of sound guys will use this on mixing desks, larger mixing desks, either live or in the studio. It peels off really quick, it sticks really quick, and it's really handy to have. So that's just a little white electrical tape. Okay, next I've got an extension lead. I'm just going to dig down from the top. This is a black extension lead. Okay, so black on a stage is better just as far as looks. Okay, so you don't have a whole lot of white leads sticking out everywhere. It just sort of blends in a bit more. I'll chuck that down there. These I'll put aside for a minute. These are all the cords that go with my mini mixer. We'll do another lesson on that, on how to wire that up. That's for if you're using backing tracks. This one here is an important little case. So let's open that up. This has just got a whole lot of odds and ends in it. All right, so let's just talk through real quick what they all are. I've got a different set, or a set of different Allen keys. All right, so some parts of the drum kit, like there might be a little part I can see on the footboard of my pedal there, uses an Allen key and so on. It's not always a drum key, so it's good. It's handy to have a set of Allen keys. This here is actually a spare spring from a bass drum pedal. So if for some reason in traveling or playing or what have you, your spring snapped or bent or something, got damaged in transit, good to have a spare one. And this is a standard Pearl one. I, of course, endorse Sleachman drums and have for about 20 years, but I know that Pearl make really good hardware, and I've always used Pearl pedals, so that's one off a Pearl pedal. I have a hi-hat clutch, a spare hi-hat clutch. What else? A couple of cymbal felts. This is more of a rubber type cymbal felt. These here are actually a pair of screwable bass drum spurs. All right, you got the spike down here, you've got the thread there, and this will screw onto most bass drum legs. All right, so that's really handy if you're playing on carpet or whatnot and you don't want the drum to slide forward. You're playing the pedal, of course, and if you're on something smooth like wood or whatever, might move forward. So handy to have a spare pair of bass drum spurs there. All right. Next, I've got a couple of different length tension rods. So this would be obviously for a bass drum being longer. And then I've got a few of these, which would just be for a snare drum or maybe a tom-tom. Sometimes you'll be doing a gig and you won't even realize, but maybe one of the bottom tension rods is starting to unwind with the vibration, especially if you're hitting quite hard or for a long amount of time. Like the classic one would probably be underneath a floor tom. All of a sudden there's one or two on the ground and you don't know where they've come from, or you forget, you don't even notice. And then all of a sudden you realize one's missing and where did it go? It's handy to have a couple of spares. Then I've just got a couple of different size wing nuts, mini jack to jack, couple of different sized drum keys, and that's pretty much it. A few other odds and ends. What's this one? Okay, that's jack to mini. All right, good. So that's that little case. We'll pop that all back in. All right, let's keep going. Phone charger, torch, Phillips head screwdriver. My flat one should be in here too, but it's not. Swiss Army knife, cutting different things or whatever. Tissues, vocal mic if I'm going to sing backing vocals. What's that? It's Beta 58, really standard mic. You could use an SM58, but just as good. Kick drum mic. Now, if you saw an early video that I did on this sort of stuff, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I said, I've been using the same kick drum mic for 10 years. I've been using it since I was 18. Well, it's now been another 10 years and it's still going. It's an Audio-Technica Pro 25. What does it say? A hypercardioid dynamic. It's not the most amazing mic on the market, but I've used it at so many gigs. It's got to be thousands of gigs now. So bass drum mic, really important to have. The most likely microphone you're going to need on a gig is going to be a bass drum mic. You can also, and the reason I've got one of these, of course you can use it for singing if you sing backing vocals in one of your bands or whatnot, but you can actually just run kick and overhead. You can use this as an overhead, and provided that your playing dynamics, your internal dynamics are in check, it actually is a really nice mix. You don't necessarily have to close mic. You can see here I've got a mic on every drum, and that obviously gives you more options, and of course here we're in a studio, but if we're live, overhead and kick is actually a really decent combination. Picks up a good sound. If you're the sort of person that bashes super loud on your cymbals or something like that, it's going to be a bit overkill, but if you know how to play properly, you'll be fine. All right, so let's next get into some of the more techie sort of stuff. I mean, I've got spare sticks and a few other bits and pieces. This here, tubing. This is actually for cymbal sleeves. So this can be another thing that you want to check every month or two, just make sure that your cymbal sleeves are actually okay. I find that on my ride cymbal, especially being a heavy cymbal and it might move a bit if I'm really laying into it, that it can sometimes cut away at the cymbal sleeves, whether you're using a plastic one or a rubber one. They don't last forever. So it's a good idea to check every now and again your gear and just make sure that you don't need to replace them. If you do, just get a knife, cut off about 1 inch or maybe even half an inch. It depends on where the thread actually starts on the cymbal sleeve, and then pop this on, put your felts over the top, and you're good to go. So this is really handy to have. I've actually got an entire roll of it, like a couple of meters of it. I just went down again to the hardware store and took a cymbal stand with me and popped them all on until I found the right one, because I was going to the music store and I was getting like 3 little inches and paying $10, and I can get an entire couple of meters of it for $2. All right, so obviously I'm going to do that. All right, so let's now get into some of the more techie audio type stuff. Over here, I've just got my iPad stand. I mean, I think pretty standard. Most people these days are using iPads and whatnot, and so most people, like singers and guitarists, will just put it on their mic stand because a lot of them are singing as well as playing. For me, I actually put it on my hi-hat stand, and so if I need to be reading a chart, I'm just flicking through the iPad, and it's just on the left of the hi-hat, so I can look down. I don't have my head buried in it the whole time, of course, because that looks really average from the audience's point of view, but nonetheless, it's really handy, and of course, it's adjustable on all the different angles. That's a really important piece right there. Okay, here we go. So now we're down to the mini mixer, and this is just a little Behringer 4-track. This is a really standard mixer to use, so if you're playing in a band or an act or a theatre show or something that uses tracks, then you're going to need one of these. So what it does, without getting too in depth, and I'll do another lesson entirely on this, including how to make tracks if you're interested in that. But basically, you've got two different channels. One of them is click, one of them is track. Of course, you being the drummer, because you run the iPod and you hit go and you count the band in, you need both click and track. So you'll typically have, say, 2 bars of click, and you might have the higher pitch on the first beat, and it might be something like tick, tuck, 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 tick, tuck, tuck, tuck. So you'll hear the first bar, and then you'll count the band in the second bar. Obviously, though, and the reason why you need 2 channels, you don't want the click going out the front of house. Front of house means the front speakers, because you don't want the audience hearing the click. And sometimes when people get it wrong, it sounds mighty strange. So make sure when you're doing a gig that you've got that sorted. And as I said, we'll do a whole lesson on this another time. But basically what it means is I've got my master volumes here, and I can just dial up if I want more click, I'll just dial up more click. If I want more track, I'll dial up more track. And I usually have them roughly the same depending on. And of course, it depends on how the track's mixed. If the track's soft, I'll dial up more track. If the click's soft, I'll dial up more click. Nice and easy. Spare pair of headphones here, although I typically don't ever use them, but they're handy to have, okay? And they are somewhat, although they're pretty old, a bit frayed, they are, they're reasonable Sennheiser headphones, and they are kind of noise cancellation. They're not, noise cancellation like the super heavy-duty ones that just are massive on your ears, but they do the job nonetheless. So more commonly than the headphones, and this is probably true of most people playing live these days, I'd say, is, of course, just in-ears. So in-ear monitors, otherwise known as. I've got a couple of different sets. These are actually both cheapies. These probably cost me like $100 each. I know a lot of people are going and getting ultimate ears and all that sort of stuff, and that's really cool. If you want to spend around $1,000 on that, and that's important to you, and you're going to get the use out of it, definitely do that. But even with these cheapies, don't even know what brand these are, but I think they're Sennheiser. But these ones are sure. I think these might be Sennheiser. But I only paid, I think, at the max, maybe $150, getting towards $200 for these. And they sound great. They've got a few drivers in them. And for the amount of gigs that I do with tracks, which is not a huge amount, I play in a couple of corporate bands, and I play in a couple of tribute shows that are entirely backing tracks, and so I'll use them then. But I'd still say that the majority of the gigs that I do at the moment are just live, so I don't need ridiculous quality ones. And if I'm ever playing along to tracks here for my from iCanPlayDrums.com lessons and whatnot, they're fine. So that's pretty much it. And then I've just got a few other bits and pieces, batteries and Stanley knife and what's this? Little mic extensions and whatnot. But these are the main sort of things. So you might want to add some extra stuff to that. I'd be interested. Let me know in the comments if I've left anything out that you think is really essential. Be interested to hear what other people use. This is sort of stuff that I've just accumulated, as I said, over the last, coming up to 20 years now. A few essential things. Got to have gaffer. Got to have a kick drum mic. Got to have in-ears. Even those 3 in a drum key. Spare sticks. They're probably your essentials, but the other stuff comes in handy every now and again as well. So, as I said at the start, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're going to be doing live lessons. They're free on YouTube. They will be taken from or examples of things that are in some of the catalogue. I Can Play Drums. We've been doing it since 2005. We've got a whole catalogue of DVDs, which are now downloadable products, and the lessons will be examples from that. If you do get value out of them, please consider buying the product. If you don't want to buy the product, that's fine as well. All right. Tuesdays, we're going to do live videos talking about this sort of stuff. It could be anything. It could be talking about tech stuff. It could be talking about recording, doing gigs, touring, whatever you want to know. And if you have questions and you've got ideas of things you'd like me to discuss, please just email me, send me a message on YouTube, iCanPlayDrums@hotmail.com. Get in touch and we'd love to discuss something. And then on Thursday, we're going to do some covers. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson. That's the Drummer's Gig Box. We'll see you tomorrow with another free lesson. Take care.